Hey everybody, my name is Ashley and I'm going to be doing an analysis on the graphic novel titled East of West. So let's just get right into it. The creative team, we have a writer, Jonathan Hickman. The artist is Nick Dragata. The colors are done by Frank Martin and the lettering done by Russ Wooten. The publisher responsible for the graphic novel is Image Comics, and the novel itself is 96 pages in length. Particularly East of West is a series. It is up to 31 issues now, so while I have no idea how this particular series ends, I know a little bit about how it begins. I've never heard of it before prior to this assignment, so all I know is a little bit about the first edition. So the first thing that I'm going to get into is the act structure. So East of West is funny. It's broken into 5 different parts. They resemble act breaks, but they're not quite. So you have 5 different parts. They're not broken up like the 1/4, 1/2, 1/4 like we're used to seeing. Their 5 parts are pretty much equal in storytelling. They all tell a big chunk of the story. And I'll actually show you because you can't really miss it. Like here, there is an entire page that says, hey, part 2. So you know exactly when a part of the story is ending and a new part is beginning. However, they do a pretty good job of leaving it on a note where you know, okay, this is ending and we're going to hop into the next part of it. They do a pretty good job of that. So the next thing I'm going to get into are the transitions that happen throughout the graphic novel. As we've read, there are a few different types of transitions. The first one that I noticed off the bat in the beginning were a lot of scene-to-scene transitions, and I say this because it's basically the story being told by different points of view, different people, different scenes, so the panels bounce from one character to another, or one place to another. That is why I consider it scene-to-scene. Not only beginning, I mean, you see a few throughout once you hop into the story. Any particular panel that reflects like 2 different places while the story progresses, I consider that scene-to-scene. But the most common transition used in this graphic novel, I would have to say, is subject to subject. There is a lot of confrontation and dialogue that happens throughout, so the panels reflect one character and then another right away. You know, it's not as close-knit as moment to moment or action to action. It is literally subject to subject. Everybody is really face to face, and you're focused on really one thing at a time. So that's how the transitions go for the most part in the graphic novel. Directional flow. I'm going to be honest, there's a lot going on in the story, an awful lot. Very, very hard to kind of figure out what is going on. I had to read it 3 times in the past week just to kind of figure out the deal. As far as the setup, I mean, the panels on each page are read from left to right, so to me that was normal. You know, again, hard to follow, but the imagery definitely helped a lot. There were a lot of great illustrations that, I mean, they really harmonize with the action and the dialogue. So, okay, if you didn't know what was happening based off of the words, look at the picture. If you didn't know what was really going on with the picture, you then read the words and you're like, oh, you know, because they really do coincide throughout. They did a really good job at that. I mean, really, it was distracting for me to follow the graphic novel because I'm not really used to reading books with images, so my eyes wander. Oh, look at this picture, look at that one, kind of, you know. But I imagine that's every graphic novel. I'm not really well versed in that area of reading, but it was definitely a cool thing to check it out. So for the most part, you know, directional flow was there, and after you read it throughout, you do go back, and even though the story is really jumpy, you do see, oh, well, that happened because this happened. Oh, okay. Like, you notice the directional flow is there. The story does flow. There's just a lot going on at once that it's hard to kind of keep it all together, but they definitely did use directional flow throughout. So I'm going to get into the story arc a little bit. I just want to give you kind of a rough idea of what the story is actually about. So, story arc was solid. You know, I liked the story. It definitely has a beginning, middle, and end. I think the thing I liked most about it, and the very most unique thing about this particular story, is that the layout, the beginning is all backstory. it's entirely backstory. Most of the story is backstory, which is odd, but I found it cool. Without this piece, I don't think the story would make sense, so it was definitely necessary. I personally love exposition when I write, when I read. I think it's very beneficial. Some frown upon it. I'm not one of them, so I definitely thought this was an A+ for this graphic novel. Now, a brief summary of the story. Again, a lot going on. Some things very hard for me to decipher, so I'm just going to kind of make it short and sweet. So the basic idea is that we're set in the future. Basically, the Civil War never ended. We're still in it. There's a bunch of different groups that are kind of going at each other, so forth and so on. There are 4 horsemen. That's what they are called. It is famine, war, conquest, and death. Now, basically, what their goal is to bring about the apocalypse. That is their goal. Basically, the background with that is that they are fulfilling some type of prophecy that was left before them, and there is kind of a process. Now, the people that are around them, they either believe in this message or they don't. If you believe in this, you then seek to follow these horsemen in whatever their beliefs are. Now, what's odd is that these people who do believe will go to the horsemen, they want to follow them, they want to bring upon the apocalypse, you know. The horsemen always kill them. I don't know why, but it does happen, and it's important in the story because the first big character arc that I noticed was one of the horsemen, Conquest. Now, I don't know much about Conquest. All I know is that he is a member of the 4 horsemen that have one particular goal in mind. He goes against this goal when he spares the life of an infant. They named this infant Ezra, and they decided he would be the carrier of the message, making him the first member of a group called the Chosen. Now, the Chosen to me, you know, a lot of terminology that I didn't really put together, but the Chosen is just a group alongside with the same goal in mind to bring upon the apocalypse. It's actually a group that I think formed in the story, rather than one that was already kind of set up for the readers. So it was interesting. And basically, I don't know if Conquest had said, "Oh, this infant, I have a sense that he is our symbol, our way of getting to the apocalypse." I don't know if it wasn't really made evident in the story, but I do have a sense that maybe that's what happened. That's why they saved this infant. But either way, it was a huge change in the story, so it was definitely worth noting. Now, the next character arc that I noticed pretty much drives the whole plot. Now, Death, I consider him the protagonist. He drives the whole story, pretty much, so a lot of the action revolves around him. On his journey, he falls in love with a member from a different group. Now, my apologies if I do not get this name right, because I know some of you may be a fan of this graphic novel. I can't pronounce it to save my life, but I'm gonna go with Zaya because that is how it looks. This is his love interest. Now, he meets her, and it's a classic forbidden love. They run away together. He forgets all about his original goal of the apocalypse. He abandons his 3 other horsemen. They go off. They have a kid together. Assuming, because it's not made evident in the story at all, assuming that Zaya confides in her sister, because her sister then betrays her and tells the 3 other horsemen, hey, this is where they're at. So they go find her. They capture her, imprisoned. This is where the father, then, of Zaya, Zaya's father, meets these 3 other horsemen and says, hey, listen, I'll make a deal with you. I will keep Zaya away from Death. That way you can find him, you can get your goal, you know, and in return, all I want is that you make sure that he does not know about her existence. So basically, they came to an agreement. So that happened. Now, a lot of weird things kind of happen now. Nobody really knows who's alive, who's not, and then all of a sudden comes 10 years later, and the 3 of the 4 horsemen, not including Death, resurrect. And when the 3 resurrect and they notice that the other hasn't, they say, oh, wow, he didn't die. So then it becomes evident that he's still alive out there somewhere. Now, what happens is that they go about their goal, you know, like it never ended. So what happens with Death is that he pretty much threatens a few people to figure out if his wife is still, you know, on this planet somewhere, you know. It kind of made it seem in the story that he hadn't stopped looking for her for 10 years. But anyway, so someone eventually tells him where she's at or gives him an idea, so he goes and finds her. When he gets there, he has a lot of explaining to do. He's girl is wondering, where have you been for 10 years? Why haven't you found me? He explains, they kind of patch things up. One way or another, they find out that their son is also out there somewhere. So the next goal for Death is to then go and find his son. And he says to Zaya, I will be back. I'm going to find our son. That is how the story ends. Not an ideal ending for me. I don't think I've ever really been satisfied with any ending of a story, just because when you like it, you want it to keep going. But a smart move on the author's part for sure, because, again, it's one of a series of 31, so you're going to want to keep going. So definitely a good call on their part. Overall, I recommend giving it a read. Hopefully I didn't give too much away. It might take about 2 or 3 times to truly understand what's going on, but once you do, it's well worth it. I would definitely consider reading the second one myself just to figure out what happened. So yeah, I definitely give it an A. I liked it a lot. Well, that about wraps it up. So thank you guys for watching. Good luck to everybody on their presentations. And in case you're getting all jittery and nervous, just remember we only have 3 more months. 3 more months till graduation. Alright, thanks guys. See you.